episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I am your host, as always, Jeremy, here to try to lend a little normalcy to this world. But these days it gets harder and harder, but me and my guest always try to make it happen. And my guest tonight is Ron Mills, who is an author of two books that we're going to get into talking about them in a little bit. But first things first. Ron, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good.
Glad to hear it. And it's a Monday, which is always hectic, but glad we can get you on one of these hectic days and just we get to talk about fun stuff for a good hour or so.
Mhm.
So first things first, the question I ask everybody is what got you into the paranormal, supernatural, spiritual world? Like what got you into it from the start?
When I was sorry, I got a little frog. When I was a kid, I was always interested in anything I would see that came on. The In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. I used to
Nimoy?
love to
Yeah.
watch that. Yeah, Loch Ness monster, ghosts, aliens, all that stuff interests me. I remember when I was a kid, I saw they used to have movie of the weeks when they had 3 to 4 TV channels, and
Yeah.
they had a music. Each station had NBC, ABC, CBS. They had a movie of the week, a movie made for TV, and one time I'm looking, they're doing a promo, the Betty and Barney Hill story captured. I
Ooh.
said, "Oh my God."
Classic.
Right. And I'm like about 10 or something. Asked my mom, said, let me stay up and watch it. Let me stay up. It was a school night. And she's like, no, you'll be asleep. Uh, it's up to 11, just mystified by the whole story. So, and was lucky enough when I ended up getting the show to have Catherine Mardine on there, who was the niece. I remember that show because James Earl Jones played Barney Hill.
Ooh.
Right. Most people don't remember that as the voice of Darth Vader,
Oh, Leonard Nimoy was show was definitely before my time. Like it was,
Mhm.
I was too young. I've seen reruns of it, but I don't think I ever caught the Barney Betty Hill one.
No, this was a movie made for movie
Oh,
TV, but
oh,
I watched the
yeah,
show, the series all the time. So I was always trying to catch something like that, and just fascinated by UFOs and the possibility that there are other beings on other worlds.
of course.
And Star Trek, of course, I watched that, and I had a B-9 robot that broke from Lost in Space.
Nice.
The robot B-9, I love that too. So those were my favorite things. It interests me. So I mean, I just couldn't
Nice.
get enough of it. So I was always looking for something like that.
Yeah, I was the same thing as a kid. Like for me, it was more books because I found books in my elementary school library that had Bigfoot and Loch Ness and all
Mhm.
those classic cryptids in it, and aliens, of course, and it just fascinated me to no end. And that's what made me get into the same field as well, which two like-minded individuals, which I like. So my second question I always ask everybody is, have you had any experiences yourself where you've seen anything like what you mentioned?
Yes, definitely. Um, I'm originally from Cleveland, and
Nice.
I I lived in East Cleveland in this building. Well, no, it wasn't. It was on the edge of East Cleveland, and it's this building. And the guy bought it as his first time owning a building, and he was happy to have it, but it was an old building. It had like marble floors, and he turned them into efficiencies. And this grand staircase, he turned them to efficiencies. And mine was on the third floor. It had a Murphy bed. A Murphy bed. You could pull out the wall, an old Murphy bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had a mattress. When I first moved in, this is my nomadic period. I moved in there, and the Murphy bed was there and stuff. And I was like, pulled it out. The mattress looked okay. I said, I could, I'm gonna get a futon, later on in the week and stuff like that, because this kitchenette you can see everything from there. So I decided that night to put some covering over. I'm gonna sleep on the Murphy bed, and I'm afraid of it because I'm a fan of the Three Stooges, and the Murphy bed always goes up, nobody can get out. But I pull it down, I'm sleeping, and then I feel something like somebody sat on the edge of the bed, and I'm facing the opposite way, about to fall asleep, like somebody fell on the edge of the bed, and I feel weight get in the bed, and my heart is about to beat through my chest, and I say, because I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, somebody broke in," and they got the nerve to get in bed with me. So I'm ready to roll out, roll out and fight whatever there is in there and stuff. So whoever came in, I'm thinking, because you can see everything. You see the door. I think it's like 5 windows. You can see everything from there, and there's a little kitchenette, and there's the bathroom. That's it. So I'm literally sleeping in the living room with the Murphy bed. So I roll out ready to challenge whatever there was. And I see this weight. It looks like a body there. And I'm looking, and then the weight gets off the bed. And I'm just like, I just fell back on the floor. Just like, I think there was a ghost. But
Yeah, what else could you do?
right. In that same building, I would hear people walking on the marble floor like they had on hard shoes. And I was like, who is that out? And I look out the door. There's nobody. It stops. Um, but I think one of the most scary things, other than Murphy bed, that was really scary because I got a futon the next day. I said, I'll never sleep on that thing again. So the next day, um, I get the futon and everything. But I used to work this other job, and I used to get in really late. So I am laying in bed, and I'm beginning to fall asleep. And I hear somebody say, Ron, in my ear. And I'm thinking, I'm falling asleep. I'm starting to dream, just relax and stuff. And I hear somebody say, Ron, and I feel the breath on my ear, and get up and grab my ear and stuff. There's nothing there. So it was that building. I had to get out of that building. There was something weird going on there. And it looked like it's just with the Murphy bed and stuff, like it was been around since the 30s or 20s. So somebody was still living in there. So
Yeah, I get that because the house I live in now, my first house I ever bought, the previous residents are still living here, we believe, and we've actually had paranormal investigators in here about a
wow,
year ago to prove it. So they're still here, and they don't bother us too much. We can sense them around us, but they talked to me on one occasion when the investigators were here, but since then they haven't talked to me, and they just kind of keep to themselves, and we think they watch over the kids because they never had any. So, but I could relate. I mean, my wife has had some weird experiences with them where they brush her hair or like touch her shoulder or that type of thing. So
wow.
it's strange. But
Do you have any
so
animals? Because they see.
yes, I've had one mastiff now for since Easter, and she, she when she first came home, like the first few months she was living here, she would start barking at nothing, like in the house, like especially looking at mirrors. She would bark at nothing.
Hmm.
But so I mean, she definitely senses something here, and like they stay in their cages in the basement when they're not in the house or when they're not outside. So, I mean, and they'll bark at nothing in the basement all of a sudden. I mean, it may be a mouse running through too, but a lot of times, like during the dead of winter, during like the middle of summer when there's no mice in the house because they're all outside, like
Hmm.
they'll start barking randomly, and it's just like we got two of them now, of course, and it's just like they bark at the most random things, and it's just nothing there, and at least that we could see, but they could probably see more than we can, of course. So it's I mean, there's definitely spirits in this house, and we don't know if it's just the two of them or if there's more. I actually plan on having someone come this month to come clean my house out because it gets to the point sometimes at night, like late at night, where it gets creepy and like my wife will come to me while I'm sitting on the couch and be like, there's coldness all around you. And I'm just like, I didn't feel it, but okay, it's possible, I guess. I mean, in this house, anything's possible. For Halloween, we literally bought a sign to put in our door that says "Home Sweet Haunted Home," and it's the truest decoration ever. But
I believe cats like what's the movie
yeah,
Constantine when
yep.
he's like, yeah, he had to he asked his sister in the hell. He put his feet in water and said, "Give me the cat," and he said, "They have one foot in this world and one foot out the other." And I believe that with cats because we had a cat and the cat would just decide all of a sudden they had to be in the kitchen. Just got up and ran, and be like, "What's going on? What's in there?" Nothing. The cat just stopped and yeah. Uh,
Oh, I mean, cats are definitely more observant of these things than dogs are, because
hmm
dogs are kind of not. I don't want to say stupid, but they're kind of dumb compared to cats, and they get distracted by the smallest thing possible. So, but I mean, but cats are definitely more observant, but dogs do see things as well. I am a high believer of that. I mean, my dog will bark her head off, and then like you take her outside, she doesn't have to go bathroom, or anything like that, and then it's just like you eventually she'll go back inside and she'll start barking again. And it's like, okay, there's definitely something in this room if she's barking in this room constantly, and she'll bark and she'll look around like she's following something. So I mean, I believe it. It's 100%. I believe it. I know there's spirits in this house. It's been proven, and I actually had one of them thank me for all the work I did to the house when I bought it. So
wow.
it was creepy. My when that happened, my back had chills down it, and I was sweating. And I asked the two investigators in the room, like, "Did you guys hear that?" And they're like, "Nope, we didn't hear anything." But it was just so creepy. But anyway, well, I know you're interested in aliens. Have you had any experiences seeing UFOs or anything like that? Or
Only once, and it was I'm still really sure or not if I saw it, but I'm positive I did because you want to think it's something else, you don't realize it. My kids were little. I had divorced my first wife, so I would take them out and do stuff. So it's like, okay, we can grab some Happy Meals, and I got this like these 89-cent kites. It looked like painted garbage bags over plastic, one of those, like that. And so I get them to run. You got to run to get it, to catch the wind and stuff. So I could tire them out for the
of
weekend.
course,
So yeah, so you got to run. So they had a lot of fun doing it, and other people were down. We were on Lake Erie, and other people were down flying kites. It was kind of a good day to fly kites. Wind wasn't that bad then, so other people had box kites. Their kites were really high.
yeah,
And the girls were trying to get theirs up and stuff, and we got it up a little and stuff, and then it started getting really windy and stuff, and it said it's going to tear up this eh, dollar kite, these dollar kites we got. I said let's put them in and go because it's getting really windy. Because I saw the real good kite flyers started pulling their stuff in because it got really windy, and I was like, "Whose kite is that? It's really up there. It's like silver triangle." you know. I was like,
oh,
"Wow, they got that kite really up high." I said, "Did it break the tether?" And so I'm looking at it, and then it slowly starts moving across the lake and going a little faster. And it doesn't do like a kite. If you had one of the triangle ones flip around, it was just still flat. You could see the bottom of silver. And I was like, I think that's a UFO. And it took off. I think that's a UFO. And it shot through the clouds. I'm like, that's not a kite. Kite wouldn't be able to go that high. I'm thinking. And then I said, the Perry nuclear plant is around here. Now, UFOs like to hang around nuclear plants. So a Perry nuclear plant is across the lake. So I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, maybe it was, a UFO.
yeah. I mean, it most likely was. I mean, a silver triangle is a very, as you know, is a very
Mm.
highly discussed UFO shape, and that's. I mean, a lot of people say that's usually like the mothership, or if it's bigger, if it's smaller, it's like a scout ship. But I mean, it's just. mm, I've had one UFO sighting as well where I saw a cluster of them in the night sky, and I actually didn't spot them at first. My son spotted them when he was like 6 years old, 5 years old, and
Hmm.
he asked me, he's like, "Why are those stars moving?" And I'm like, and I had a few drinks at that point, so I'm like, "What are you talking about? Stars don't move." And I look up, I'm like, "Oh, what's this now?" And literally, they must have been far from Earth, I'm guessing, because they were stars, but like they look like stars, but 7 or 8 of them in a formation just going through space. And it
Wow.
was they were moving at a speed that I mean, obviously stars don't move fast enough for the naked eye to see them. So, and they were moving fast enough that the naked eye could see them all moving in a formation, just traveling. I'm guessing through space. I'm guessing they weren't even in Earth's atmosphere because they were that small. But it was it was trippy. I mean, it was in the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was in the Bridgewater Triangle, which is a highly known UFO alien encounter area. So,
I believe that our government is hiding a lot of stuff, and I am an older gentleman. I could say older, I get more seasoned, but um, I look at the I look at the technology, and they talk about the technology since Roswell and the 40s had just tremendously just shot, like record time,
yeah,
yeah, because I was like, oh, when I was growing up, we had three channels, and now TV's almost becoming obsolete. You're streaming everything, and I was telling one of my friends, I said, "Oh, let me check out something on the game and stuff," and I was like, "I'm watching stuff on my phone." It's like it is amazing. There's no wires. There's no. I'm watching stuff on my phone. I was like, this is Jetson stuff that we are thinking about as a kid. And how did we get here? And I remember reading something about Corso talking about the technology that they back engineered and threw back to companies like IBM and stuff like that. The stuff they wanted, they military wanted stuff like they said when they had these aliens and they unclothed them and stuff, Kevlar, night vision and stuff like that. Stuff that they got from them, that they back engineered, Velcro, and you know, just
yeah.
interesting to see what other stuff that they got that they never told us about. But fiber optics um, pretty much created a lot of the stuff that we're using, so that they back engineered. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
I mean that fiber optics created the internet and created everything we are
yes.
able to do today. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that, I mean, the government admitted that UFOs exist and they can't explain them. They
Hmm.
admitted that during COVID because they knew it would be swept underneath the rug and no one would say anything about it because there was a bigger concern at the time than the fact that aliens exist. But for people like you and me who are paranormal lovers, we immediately were like, "What now? You're
Hmm.
admitting it finally after Operation Blue Book, after Area 51, and all this
Hmm.
stuff. You're finally admitting it. Like we've known for years. It's just finally getting to the point where you're admitting it. Like God,
When they, I remember looking it up because one time I was doing a show and stuff like that. They were, especially the United States Army, admitted, uh, you know, in the military, it's not really anything, out there. Nothing we could prove, very little and stuff. And they're saying, yeah, it's just very little out there. Nothing we could really prove, and nothing. But I saw them learn after the Roswell incident. Now you're saying there are things that don't exist, but you put into your military handbooks how to handle the locals should a flying saucer land. You didn't say that they're out there. You didn't admit that, but it's how to handle the locals because you ran into that problem before in Roswell. Afterwards, it's in their military handbooks because they're going to get there first. Because people going to think, oh, it's a down airplane. It's going to. How do we handle the locals, the police, the fire department? They're going to beat us there. Nobody said, oh, call the government agencies and say flying saucer land that most people are going to think maybe. like Mark Brazel's ranch. Something crashed, like a airplane or something. So they're going to get there first. So you have to handle and you have to learn how to engage the locals so they don't start running their mouth. Yeah. And taking
Exactly. I mean,
pictures. Now, how are you going to stop it if one lands and occupy? Everybody has a camera now. Everybody's a reporter. So they're in real trouble now.
but yet these cameras seem to always take blurry pictures,
Yes.
and that's because the extraterrestrials have a ability to blur pictures taken by devices. Because if you think they didn't help develop these devices to some degree, you are out of your mind. So, I mean, I mean, I truly believe the government has been taking tech. One of my favorite book series when I was a kid was the first book in it was called My Teacher is an Alien. And like, it basically was a story of how a student finds out that his teacher in middle school was an alien by looking through his house window because he thought something was off about him, and he
Hmm.
sees him take off his skin mask, and he's really like a reptilian basically. And eventually develops in the books that like Einstein was an alien, and like all the greatest inventors in like the 20th century were aliens, and that they helped us create everything. Which I love this book series. I wish I could find it for my kid so he can read it. I gotta look into it more, but it was just a good book series, and it kind of like fueled my fire for paranormal and alien activity when I was a kid, because it just and it's kind of true, I think, because it's everything we think is. I mean, I don't know if Einstein was an alien. It's possible, I guess, but I doubt it, kind of. But I mean, it could be a very true theory that a lot of stuff we were able to develop over the last 50, 60 years at least were stuff we learned about from down UFOs and from. I mean,
Hmm.
aliens have had contact with our government before. We have proof of that.
Exactly.
The Valiant Thor
Yeah.
incident with I believe it was Eisenhower, where an alien actually stayed in the Pentagon slash White House
Hmm.
for weeks trying to talk them out of using nuclear arms.
They were living inside of Venus, and they said they were living inside Venus, the planet Venus.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I
Which is
forgot who is it that said our moon, and we're about to have a eclipse. That the moon is almost like a Death Star type of thing.
I I forget who said it, but all I know is that people get the people that the astronauts that came back from the first trip to the moon,
Hmm.
they all look pretty terrified in the conference afterwards. So, I mean, that right there should tell you something.
And then I think I think somebody caught them like in back then you you had signals, but people on ham radios can catch a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff would slip out because we don't have the technology now to boost everything around and spread it around and stuff. But when I did one thing, and somebody was how terrified that the astronauts were, and they kind of caught them on. They said they're lined up on the crater. They're lined up talking about their flying saucers lined up in the crater, and they said, "We know about that. Go the other way." They're telling them to go the other way, and we essentially went to the moon in a '76 Chevy Nova. With there's more computer technology in our phones than they had then, and we've not been back since. I believe we were told not to come back. I believe.
I I'm a firm believer in that as well because
Mm.
I mean they say like that part of the footage where it went static, like
Hmm.
it didn't go static. That was the government that was the government just blocking out like
Hmm.
what they didn't want you to see, because there was a delay between what NASA saw and what they actually was happening in real time. So, I mean, I mean, what between what NASA let the public see and what was
Right.
happening in real time. So, I mean, I to me, it's 100% that there's definitely some kind of species that has a base in the moon,
Hmm.
and I mean, the moon's always been there. It controls a lot of stuff on Earth. I think that a species just they developed a base there. Who knows how long ago? It could have been during ancient times on Earth, and they just decided that like when we finally went to the moon, they just literally told them like you can't come back here.
Hmm.
Like, send your probes, send your droids, whatever. You can't come back here as humans because eventually it's going to lead to us being discovered, and we don't want that. And they relayed that message to the government, and the government was like, yeah, we're going to agree with that because we don't want to have to deal with another species that could be way more advanced than us if they have a base on the moon. So,
And I think it was during the Obama administration. They shot a rocket there to blow it up on the moon. The moon rang for almost like 40 minutes to show it was hollow.
yeah,
It rang like a bell. And what? Why do you do that? They said, "Oh, we're running an experiment." What type of experiment was that? Because and ours is too perfect. When you look at the other ones, it's too perfect. It's too round. It's the other ones. They said we have almost the most perfect type of moon, the orbit and everything. It's amazing that every 28 days the moon circles the Earth, and a woman's cycle is around 28 days. Or it's too perfect. When they look at all the other moons, we have one, and it's very perfect, and and its orbit is just not like the other ones. The other ones have these elliptic orbits and stuff. Ours is just kind of just too perfect. And I said it was placed there for a reason, I think.
oh, I
Uh,
agree. I mean, I agree 100%. And I don't know, it's just,
we'll find out because things run into it, but the craters aren't really like it. It's pulverized, or parts of it is knocked off. It's just like there's this metal structure and there's dirt. They put this nice dirt and stuff around it,
exactly. I mean, I don't know, but let's get on. I mean, we're already a half hour in almost, so
Mm.
let's get into your books you've written because I'm curious as could be. And I kind of looked into them a little bit, like the description and whatnot. And the first book you wrote has three different stories in it, which, I mean, I've
Mm.
seen people do that before, but I want to hear why you did it.
Attention deficit disorder. So that's
That's
what I can
priceless.
think. You know what? I had this idea. I'm thinking, I was like, angelic beings is they're very interesting. And I was like, what if? And even before the pandemic in 2004, about 2003, I wrote healers. I say, okay, biblically they say, people could lay hands on you in those days and heal you of any diseases. And there's still people that can do it today. And I said, if they were, what? I said, what would they be doing? Because they wouldn't really, if they're smart enough, they'd hide. The fraudsters are out there because, like I said, I was working a late job, so came in late. Wanted to fall asleep in front of some TV, and that's when I was still at the haunted, what you call it. So I wanted to fall asleep in front of the TV, and there was this minister on there, and he was claiming that he could lay hands on the heel, and I was like, oh, this guy's such a fraud. And he had this big basket of we call healing prayer cloths. If you send him $5, he's gonna mail you back one of those cloths, like strips of cloth. And he put his hands in them, and he started saying, speaking in tongue and everything. And I was like, oh my god, this is so people are gonna buy this $5. Put his hands, said these words like you're speaking in tongues, and send me $5. I'll send you this prayer cloth and stuff. Keep it in your pocket, your wallet. And I said, if people had the power to do this, they would not be like him.
No, they
And
wouldn't.
and who would the power be given to? And so I had a set of three that came in my mind who it was. And the first book is titled The Gangster and the Gift. And I said, what if somebody, a kid that just joined, 17-year-old kid that just joined a street gang, acquired the power to instantaneously heal? And how would it change his life? And I said because I think these gifts would come to unusual people, just not the people we think it was, like that minister. I wouldn't think it would come to those type of people. It would come to somebody who was like, "How the hell did this happen to me?" and trying to figure out
Those
how
in
to use it.
it would come to those in need. It wouldn't come
Yes,
to it wouldn't come to what typically we see on TV and what we
yes.
see about on the internet nowadays, like a rich white man who just all of a sudden, like, yeah, he gets powers he doesn't even really need because he has everything he wants already.
Hmm.
So it would come to those in need, I think.
So I was like, "How would it change this kid's life?" And what would he do with the power? And so then I had another, and it's a story in a story. It's really being told by this guy who runs into his friend. He runs into his friend. His friend was dying of cancer, and all of a sudden he's well. And he said, "Oh," he meets him at McDonald's. Said, "Well, I'm going to tell you three stories here, and tell him the three stories and how eventually you end up being how he was healed." So a guy named Richard Scott tells him the three stories. So the gangster and the gift is the first one, given away. And then the second one is called Good Intentions. That was that phrase, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Because
Yeah.
it said, yeah, what if it was given to a minister who was good and honest with a small congregation of church and stuff, very small church, not a mega church, and he has an older congregation and his whole thing and his backstory. He's had a miracle, but it doesn't change him for the better. Doesn't put him on a collision course because each time in the story there's an angel presenting you with this gift. And then the gangster in the gift, the angel was 7 feet and a half, muscular, black coat over, and stuff. So the angels are different in each story. And
So
so
in that one, it's basically the shaft of angels.
yes, yes, definitely. Because is a go and give this gift to a kid in a horrible street gang. Um so and the second one is it's almost when I say, there's lost souls. Lost souls is because this preacher has this healing. He was healed when he was younger by this strange character in the hollers, because my grandmothers grew up in the hollers and stuff like that, in the South. And it's a strange guy who was an ex-slave named Catco Smith, and he heals the boy, but his father's a minister, and his father thinks it's an act of the devil because that guy that hangs out in the woods and everything, he's some type of conjure man. But when people have the gift, some people will shun him. So, and he has always wanted that gift, and it does not change him for the better. And the third story is called "Only Women Bleed," and this is a mother who is has two small children in an abusive marriage, and she acquires the power to heal. And uh, I call it "Only Women Bleed" because there's an old song by Alice Cooper. Which,
Alice Cooper, I
yeah,
like that.
"Only Women Bleed." Yeah, very interesting story. But yeah, and that's given to this mother who's literally getting beat up daily by her husband, and how she uses it and how it changes her life. And essentially, I had these three different characters, and I wonder how and what they would do with it. And that was the thought, because, and sort of reissued it, strangely enough, before COVID hit.
Okay.
Right. And where angels come in the second one, it was an interesting character who is the angel of disease and pestilence. And um, it, angels are interesting because in the Abrahamic religions, they depict angels as celestial intermediaries between God and humanity. Uh,
Yes.
they're protectors and guides for humans and servants of God. As they have a hierarchy, and it varies depending on the source. So depends on who you go for the source. But I, there's pictures of them wings and everything. Because in that book, I said they fly between heaven and earth, and but it's it's this interesting dichotomy between them, and you create this being that is very strong. He says going to be a servant to man, and you give it, you give the being, just like we have free will. You gave this being free will because if we understand, we read and stuff. There was this, there was this war in heaven,
Yeah.
essentially. Right,
The great falling of the morning star. Yeah.
right. Lucifer did not want to serve men. And I said one of my favorite movies, The Prophecy, with Christopher Walken in it.
Can't say I've seen it, but
Yeah,
I have read not Dante's Inferno. My God, I always forget the name of this book. But basically, it's the story of Lucifer falling from Lucifer's perspective. I forget what it's called. I always do, but God, it'll come to me. It always comes to me eventually.
Y-
But
yeah, Prophecy. He calls men monkeys,
yes,
and yeah, God loves you more than us, and it's like, and he's kind of pissed about it and looking for this great evil, and there were rules and stuff, and he comes down and he gets people that are about to die to do his bidding. And he said, no, 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 no. People are committing suicide. No, no. It brings them back and stuff. And he makes them drive the car and stuff. And they say, why don't you do it yourself? And Christopher Walken, this voice said, there are rules. We could do things, but no operating mechanical stuff, by bad Christopher Walken. And
I gotta watch that movie. I love Christopher Walken. I gotta watch
yeah,
it.
you have to see it. It spawned another. It was really good. And he's pretty mad because, and the guy is trying to stop him is a guy who was going to become a priest, but he lost his belief. He lost his religion. So he became a cop. And so he's trying to find it. They think he's looking for a killer, but it's this angel who is Gabriel. And he's starting stuff. And, and
Oh,
he said,
okay.
wants to know why God is chosen the man over him. And there's a classic scene where he's like, he's beating up on the cop, and he was telling him, he said, why don't you, because he was the ex priest, he was going to be a priest that didn't take the oath. And he was told him, he said, why don't you ask God? It said why he did it. You mean the answer is ask God. And Christopher Walken in his voice, I would, but he doesn't talk to me anymore. Why is it? But it's always this classic thing where angels are, you're showing that they do have the will, and I wanted to show that too with the character I put in the second story, Amziel, and he's angry because he didn't join in the war. When he didn't join in the war, he once said he wanted to wait to see who won, and
Yeah, and
so
I
he
mean,
wasn't allowed in hell. He wasn't allowed in heaven. So he's like, and it's weird that before the COVID, it's like he said whenever he had the stench of millions of diseases on him, and he was hunched over. He was no longer beautiful. His wings were no longer white, and they're moldy. And when they drop, and uh, a new uncurable disease would come. When he'd mold it,
yeah,
and he said I couldn't. And for years, he's been searching for, he tried, he said, years he looked for him, the Christ. He said, because he's the only one that can heal him. He said, now he's looking for the second coming. So, but he is the angel, the interesting anti character that I throw in there. So, but watching all of these movies about angels and studying angels and stuff, because I looked, the jobs of them are messengers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to tell the birth of Christ, um, and the Christmas story. You know, Gabriel appears and Mary tells her that she's going to be the mother of Jesus, and you bring information. They're enforcers, and that's the usual thing. There's just ancient pictures with them with swords and everything, and the
Yeah,
power
because
of it. Yeah.
it's funny because the book I was thinking of is Paradise Lost.
Mhm.
That it's a story of Lucifer falling, but from his story, his it's from it's like it's kind of like the thing I always relate to is like the story of Three Little Pigs, but from the big bad wolf's perspective.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that, but in that story, like there's a lot of sword fights between the angels,
Mhm.
and of course there's the big war, of course. But
Yeah, you had what uh one angel killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers, according to the book of Isaiah. Just one angel
hmm
sat up there that night, killed them in one night. So you know, it of course in Egypt, the Passover, the angel of death, the Easter story. You
yep,
know, every first Egyptian born, that's the angel of death. Yeah, they put a mark on their door and stuff, the angel of death. And in my in my story, Amziel is even jealous of the angel of death. He's like, you have a purpose, take people out of their misery. Me, I'm just, I give them the most horrible diseases. They live in pain, live through them. So Sodom and Gomorrah, two angels wiped, towns out, literally. So yeah, they have this great power and they have will. But beyond the Bible, if you go to the Apocryphers, the Book of Enoch, and it's like
yeah,
the Watchers had a will. To say they were like in the hierarchy a little lower. So God tells them, go down there and I want you to teach men certain things, the seasons, when to plant, when to do certain things and stuff, so the earth was young. Yeah, they decided to. They saw the women of men, they took them for their own, and their offspring were giants,
yeah.
literally.
The my God, why am I the Nephilim? The
Hmm.
Nephilim. Yeah,
So literally, and God's pissed off about that. It's like, you're down there, and it was like, we're in trouble now. We're in trouble. We need somebody to talk for us. Best thing an angel could do is find a righteous man. They find Enoch, an Ethiopian Jew. They said, you need to go and plead our case to God for us because he's pissed at us. And it was like, so he goes to plead their case and he tries, and God says, never mind, never mind. It's already taken care of. And said, they're supposed to be the ones locked up to the end of days and stuff because they're thrown in the pit, locked up for the end of the days to be released sometime later, And but the, Enoch, what about the giants? They're not only eating the fat of the lion, they're eating men. And they're eating men too. And so, and these huge giants are roaming around. And I noticed that ministers will stay, they won't read other they won't read other texts because those are the ones that were taken out of the Bible and said they're the apocryphals. They're not really with the Bible. They took them out, but Constantine was deciding what went in the Council of Nicaea decided really what goes in the Bible and what does not. So, and they didn't like the fact that angels have free will. So, but it explains the story when I was a kid and I'm going to church. And disclaimer: I no longer go to church. But so I'm a kid at mass, and the minister is like, "Yeah, David and Goliath." He said there were giants in those days. I'm like, really? And me, the paranormal thing. Where'd they come from? Where giants were around? Are they still around? And he was like, he said, yeah. Where'd they come from? He said they were just here. So when I get older, I read and stuff what happened and stuff because that book is linked directly to the Bible. Because Enoch God tells Enoch, said, "Don't worry, that will be taken care of by your great great grandson, your great 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 grandson, who is Noah, the flood." you know. So if you look in Genesis, begat, 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 Enoch is in there. Why take out his book? He's in there, begat,
I
begat, begat.
Well, I mean, his books were taken out like all the other books because the kings of England and kings of France
Yes.
wanted them taken out to try to get their word so that they thought they were unnecessary or they thought they were against things they believed. So they
Mm-hmm.
wanted the books taken out just to serve their ends, kind of. Which I mean, that's why I'm not religious anymore. I'm agnostic. I believe there's something out there, whether it's extraterrestrial or whether it's the God we all suppose we are supposed to believe in. I mean, there's something out there. I believe that, but I'm not gonna give my money or my loyalty to any religion because I can't. They all have their own lies and they all have done falsehoods throughout history. So to me, that's just the way it is. Like I can't believe in any one religion. Like I have to just kind of believe in myself and the fact that there's something out there and I want to believe, but until I see the proof, I can't believe
I
personally.
believe, and I I think I've seen the proof in just from things that are around the planet. I can't believe it's evolution. So I can't say, and I think religion is man-made. I remember I had a show. I had a Hard Storm on there. The book, My Descent into Hell. He didn't believe in anything with the hell and stuff, and came back as a minister in Ohio and talked about being tortured and everything. And so he didn't believe in anything, but he essentially he gets to talk to Jesus and ask Jesus. One of the questions is, what's the best religion? Because Jesus saves him from hell. And he said, whatever brings you closer to God. So I believe religions are man-made because I can't believe that the Muslims are going to hell. I can't believe Jehovah's Witnesses are going to hell. I can't believe the Hindus are going to. I can't believe that. I believe it's like a group. We said, oh, we believe in close to the same thing, so we could believe this together and sit down and I think there's just a group and stuff, but I you know it's just we're on this rock
See,
that
that just made me
is.
that's made me laugh so hard because it reminds me of the South Park episode where they talk to God in 2000 during 2000
Mm.
when God comes back 2000 years later, and they ask him who's going to hell, and he's like the Mormons.
But
But
I do believe, just like I can't believe, as the other day I was listening to a radio show host and he was talking about that, and he always says there's nothing out there that's just us. It's like, really? Are we that arrogant that there's just us and billions upon billions? You can't even count them. Stars and worlds. And I was like, it's just us. I was like, I was telling somebody that I said, it's the equivalent. I said, whoever it is that made things is smart enough to know that we won't get along. Probably we're technically we're definitely the same species, but through the only part of evolution is where we moved and stuff to change our color and hair and features. And I was like, so we are. I said, but of all the insects, they're probably one of the ones that's just hugest ants. And it's like light years away from different species of ants. There's some in the tropics. And it's like if that was like a planetary system, they would be light years away. I believe they said they don't get along and they're all together, so they gonna get along. I hope that one day to see the Star Trek thing where It said once they find out that we're not alone in space, then we all get along on the planet Earth because we're like we become a nation on the planet Earth because there's a lot more out there now. We better get
Exactly.
along.
I mean, that's when the planet Earth will finally all get along, is when
Mhm.
they have a common enemy to go against, which will be an extraterrestrial species who wants to destroy us. So that's my full belief too, is that that's when human beings will all get along, no matter what race or creed or religion they are.
Mhm. Uh, and then it might be like in humanoid. I always had wondered. I was like, when I watched Star Trek as a kid, I was like, okay, this is Vulcans. How they get there? Until I saw the Next Generation, the movie with
Yeah,
Zephyr and Cochrane, and
yeah.
the Vulcans. It really the Borg went back in time to stop Zephyr and Cochrane because it was after the nuclear wars. He was making a rocket, and he was really making a rocket. And they had this great thing, this great man, but he wasn't. He was drinking, he, you know, listening to old rock music and stuff. He was a mess. But they said we got to help him get this rocket, back in. So the Borg wanted to stop him from going there. They said because once he shoots this rocket and it shoots in space and it does this orbit and comes back down, who's going to see it? The Vulcans are passing by. And they said, just somebody went into warp. So they're a little smarter on this planet than we think. This is the first time somebody went into warp speed. So the Vulcans come down and talk to them and stuff. And that's what started the whole thing. The Vulcans started technology and stuff. But, you know, it's like we think this man has always been this great, great man. It's not who you think. And I remember they told him things, about himself. He was a drunkard and stuff. And I remember Riker quoted something. He said, "Who the hell said something dumb like that?" He said, "You," you know. And I remember he was afraid. He was like, and Jody LaForge kept looking at him. He said, "It's just you." And he said, "What?" He said, I went to, he said, "I went to Zephyr and Cochrane High School," And he's talking about there's a statue of you standing with your hand out reaching into space. He was like, I'm not that guy. So, but he was just an ordinary guy that did something. But I said once the Vulcans came down, they had this whole different world. They decided to change their aim. And I saw in the Next Generation an episode where they found these guys from the 20th century and like a capsule they had been frozen, and one of the guys was a multi-billionaire, and he was like, Picard, I got to talk to you. You got to take me back to Earth now. I'm a very rich man. I can make you rich. And he was like, it kept bothering him. He said, we don't really have a money system. He said, what? He said, but I got a lawyer, got my money and stuff. He said, we don't really have. He said, well, money's not the aim anymore. And he said, what do you mean money's not the aim? He said, well, we've we've stopped homelessness, poverty, you know, and, and he was like the disease, and he was like, our thing now is to be the best we can, you you know, and be the best people we can, and learn as much as we can. And he was like, from the 20th century, he's like, you completely ruined the planet. you that was his thought. Once we found out there's all this stuff out here and more, we had to become more. So, but yeah, when I made the stories, I just wanted to get this human side of what would happen if people got this extraordinary power, and how would it change them, or how it would make them better, a sense in that whole thing. And because, you know, there's a great responsibility with power. I'm going to take Stan Lee's stuff with
With great
Spider-Man, but yeah,
with with great power comes great responsibility. One of the truest
yeah,
statements that should be followed at any times. But
right.
well, we're getting close to the end here, so people can read that book if they want to hear about the third story, which they should read it because I actually am going to be looking to get it myself because that sounds interesting as could be.
Mhm.
One of my first episodes of this show was with an author named Brandy Alexander, and she's only written one book so far, but I actually read it before the episode.
Mhm.
I read it in 3 days because it was one of the best books I've read in years, and it's all about a kid who could see ghosts because he had near death experience. And he had near death experience when he was a kid, and he could see his brother's spirit and other spirits, and they help him with become like a basically like a detective, and it develops into a subplot with like a huge plot with angels and demons. It's an amazing book. It's
Hmm.
called it's called God. It's called Genesis, a Paranormal Alliance destined to fight the forces of evil. That's the name of the first book, and it's an amazing book. And she talked about the second and third book when I had her on, and she wrote the second book. She was writing the third at that point. At this point, she has the third written already, and I can't wait for her sequels to come out because
Okay.
they are incredible books from what I've read so far. But let's talk about your second book for a second, Island Alien.
All right.
That title alone kind of intrigued me.
Um, I was with a friend, and um, she's a girlfriend, and we were going to Puddin Bay, Cleveland, South Bass
Okay.
Island. Yeah, so it's like, um, and it's really a party island, a little party island of Lake Erie. So you take the Jet Express over there, or you take the ferry, and it's about a mile long. And you rent golf carts to move around there, or bikes. And there's other bars and everything. It has a school. It has it has a police system because people are going there, especially college kids. We went before the college rush came, and stuff. So I'm sitting there, and it's fun. There's a winery, there's a butterfly exhibit, there's a caves, and I was like, again, it's not part it's part of Lake Erie. And I'm like, this would be a perfect place for a UFO to kind of come and visit. And I'm thinking, but this is great for adults, but it's got to suck for kids because it's like a party island. And I think only the thing kids would want to do is go to mainland because it was like, yeah, there are video games, but they're in the bars and stuff. But there's no movie theaters and stuff. There's a school. So I think you'd want to go to the mainland to do anything and stuff. And they said, in winter, they kind of hunker down, but it's easy to get back and forth and stuff. And they kind of take care of each other. And we stayed at a bed and breakfast. So I had the idea, what if the kid, and I said, and I was, one of my friends, like, I read books on my cell phone. I said, I can hardly see them. It's like, you don't have a Kindle. He said, read them. So I said, I'm going to make novella, and I'm going to call them the cell phone series. And I said, I'll do three little stories, And this story, people ever ask, are you in any of your stories? And I said, it's strange. I said, this one, the protagonist in this story is, is a kid at a UFO conference telling about his father's experience. His
Yeah.
father, and his father had a show, a paranormal show, about UFOs and everything. And he had a show because his encounter with a UFO, when he had this encounter with somebody, a UFO and an alien, and there's also men in black. They appear on the aisle and everything too, and and this unusual alien in a human form, and they kind of form a little bond briefly, and he leaves, and the son hated his father because he dragged him to. It was all great when he was younger, but a teenager, drag him to his UFO MUFON conferences and everything to talk to. And he said when he got older, his kids, they talked about his made fun. Your father is the UFO guy, and which I've heard with me when I had a show too. So that is a story. It's a novella. It's good. It's. I think it's interesting. It talks about meeting an alien and how it changes your life, and not an alien that explains, about about life and what's on this planet already, what's on this planet, and that you don't know about. because they're close to caves. I gotta have the men the men in black who are secretly reptilians. So I gotta have them if you got caves. If you
Oh, of
the
course, of
reptilian
course.
race, yes, the reptilian race that is there and stuff. So and people say that's nonsense. I was like,
It's not
snakes
though.
and snake people have been around a long time to different cultures, and what you think, you know, what they've seen. And I said some things go back so far that they have to be
Be
essentially.
quiet.
There's got to be something to them. Like in every culture, there's a flood story. Every
There is,
culture,
yeah.
yeah, there's a flood story. Almost every culture, there's some type of, well, no, even before, and that's not every culture, but the Native Americans talked about Sasquatch and families of them and stuff. I said, yeah,
Tri-
they would be closer
Tribes
to
of
them
them.
because, right, because we don't live in the woods like they do. I mean,
Yeah.
that back then you were in the woods, you had your teepees, you were in the woods all the time. So you're bound to see something like that.
Oh, they. I mean, Native Americans supposedly traded with tribes of hairy men, and
Yes.
but they also considered them, from what I've been told, they were spiritual. Like they were spirits of the woods, and
Hmm.
you would see them when they wanted you to see them, and then you wouldn't see them anymore.
Hmm.
Like they would walk up into the woods, and you would see them disappear as they walk into the woods. So, I mean,
I've
if
heard that they
that's
might be guardians of the planet.
exactly, they're guardians of the wood, they're guardians of the nature. I mean,
Yes.
they and they show up in nature if you're in the woods, and they think you're up to no good. I've heard that theory, and I kind of can see the sense of it. But I kind of think they're more of like a blood and skin type creature than
Hmm.
like that. Because I've heard plenty of people tell me that they're. I mean, but I've also heard theories that they're that they're interdimensional, that they're called ultra terrestrials because of that.
Hmm.
So, or that they're extraterrestrials as well. Like, there's so many theories about Bigfoot that I can't even. It would take me hours to really go through them all. But I mean, I believe they exist. That's all that matters to me is they exist,
Oh yeah.
and I believe we're very close to proving it. We already proved it to some degree because there are pictures and videos I've seen of them that prove to me they exist 100%. But until everybody believes it, and we have the undeniable proof of it, no, it's not going to be a worldwide belief until there's a undeniable proof that they exist.
And I think they're smarter than we realize.
Oh, they're
They're smart enough to stay away from us. Definitely smart enough to stay away from us.
I
Um,
believe they're smarter than humans.
def-
They're more primal, but they're smarter than
mhm.
humans.
Yeah, and just a lot, and for people that you know just dismiss stuff because they don't really know or they don't want to believe. So let's find out. It's a good possibility. Just like in your case, with the ghosts, I believe I had a guest one time that told me most interesting thing is that because of religions that told you you're going to hell, some people think they're not worthy and they will not go over to the next realm. They're afraid because there's going to be retribution, and it's retribution in the next realm. I'm not going to pass over, because all these cultures are talking about heaven, Valhalla. You're passing over to whatever next realm there is,
Yeah,
because energy doesn't die. But you're afraid to go because you heard these stories that you're going to go to hell and stuff. So you're afraid. And so you're able to stay between one realm instead of moving over where you're supposed to be because you're afraid to move over there.
exactly. And I mean that's the reason a lot of spirits are stuck on Earth. I believe is
Right.
because they're afraid of what's next. So
Hmm.
most psychics and mediums I've talked to say that what's next is basically a waiting room for you to be reincarnated and brought back.
Hmm. Which
Which
I believe. Which it was like reincarnation. I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I do believe." I said, and I and I had this person on there. It was like 16. She was like, what 16 clues to know. I think it's Barbara Lane. 16 clues to know who you were in a past life. because you say things in jest. And I know I say things in jest. I said, hey, I tell people, I said, I was a king in a past life. I
Yeah.
said, but I didn't know how to get along with the masses and and do right. And I said, there's a coup d'etat, and I end up in this life, and I'm a social worker in this life. So, I'm a social
Exactly. I
worker,
mean,
right?
I'm I mean the old homage of like I was a Nubian prince in a past life, but yeah. Or
Right.
I was King Arthur in my past life,
Uh,
but I didn't get along with the Knights of the Round Table, and now
right.
I'm back here serving as a waiter.
I had to learn that. Yes, I had to learn that. I didn't. If I was a good king, I could have moved on to the next with whatever else I'm supposed to learn. As I say, Earth is a learning ground. You agree to come here, and it sits right with me. And I grew up in a household that was religious and Christian. But I said, and they definitely you don't get another chance. You just go and sit there with Jesus. And I said, I believe that we're sent here to learn. I learn and grow and evolve spiritually. So, and I can't believe that Johnny can, end me, and that's it. And I said, well, I look at people now, and I said, I think people they do have a clock of how long they're supposed to be here. And if you go over it, there might be trouble. And I said, look at all the famous people when their time is up for them to be historically great. What did James Dean said? Live hard, die young, leave a good looking corpse. And I, I kind of believe, and I said, I told somebody one time, I said, Michael Jackson maybe stayed a little late. I said, he had to go. I said, because we didn't want to see old Michael Jackson. It's like we didn't see old Elvis.
Oh, I
Yeah, we
mean,
want to. We want to see that when they chose the stamp, they chose the young Elvis. And I said, for us to go. And some people know when their time is up and it's shown. I said, there's
it
the famous story of Lincoln. When Lincoln
yeah,
had the dream, he had the dream, yeah, who's dead? And they look at it and say, oh, the president's dead and he's in the coffin.
yep,
And shortly after, he's at Ford's Theater. And Martin Luther
bam,
King said, I had a dream. He said, I've seen the mountain, I've been to the mountain. I'm not going to get there with you. Many times they tried to kill him. He did. My time's up now. They're gonna get lucky. And how many times they missed? It was like he knew his time was up. I'm not
yep.
going to see it with you. He was saying
I mean,
bye.
it's funny you say that because like I always go back to like Men in Black One, where Tommy Lee Jones is like Elvis didn't die, he went home, and I mean Michael Jackson. I mean, yeah, because I mean old Elvis
Right.
was was fat and nobody wanted to watch him jiggle his hips on stage anymore because he was getting fatter and
Hmm.
older, and none of the ladies wanted to watch that anymore. And old Michael Jackson would have been freaking see through
Hmm.
with his skin condition. He would have been see through by the time he got old. So I mean, who knows? I mean, it's just he he lived a long. I mean, Michael Jackson lived long enough. I think to like
Yeah.
he was a star for 30+ years at least. So I mean, he things are meant to happen when they happen. It's fate. I'm a huge believer in fate and karma and all that. So you're the date you're meant to die is written before you are born.
Hmm.
You just don't know it.
Do, do you call yourself in when your mission is done? And your mission is done. Do you call yourself in? And as that's a question to know. Or the other side is like, I completed my mission. It's time for me to go. Am I one of those people that are am I gonna die old, or is better that I completed my mission and I exit right away? And maybe you get to choose that. You get to choose it. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
when
mean
they leave
it's
that good looking corpse, you know. So a young corpse so people can remember that. But you- I think like you choose it and you decide your parents what's the best thing for you to complete your mission. And I believe sometimes you forget what it is because you have free will, like the angels and everything. Forget, go completely off script, and you might get called back. start over. You didn't learn what you're supposed to learn, and here you go and stuff. I did people that near death experience. I had one on a show, and they um they said that essentially you come down, you have to learn, and you know, and they went when they had the near death experience. They said that I'm up here, I'm happy, and they're talking about how happy they were and stuff like this, and they're around these. They said that didn't judge them, but let them see their life and let them judge their life. That view of your life. And she was like, I'm not going back there ever and stuff. And they kind of said, she says that every time. you know,
Yeah, I mean, I've
right.
had I've had I've had a few people on the show who've had NDEs, near death experiences, and from what they tell me, most of them they talked to someone or something when they were at that door, and it usually asked them, "Are you ready to come home, my child, or do you want to go back and finish what you started?" And both the people I had on my show that I could think of that had NDEs, they both said, "I want to go back and finish where I started. I could do better." And it took days of convincing the other thing, but eventually they were able to come back.
Now,
And they were usually in comas for that time.
we, and as usual, there's something that changes you about being the other side. People talk about coming back with gifts. You know,
Well, neither of these people had gifts when they came back. They just one became a life coach who's very successful now, and he has many clients. And Kellen Fluckinger, he has a very unique name. And there's only two, as he says, there's only two people in the world with his name, and he's a very successful life coach now, and he's helped thousands of people better their lives. Which I guess you can call that a gift,
maybe
but
that's a
not like
gift.
that's not like I wouldn't say it's a traditional gift like you expect to come back with. And the other one is someone who is disabled, like she has a disability, but she was able to come back and spread her message, and that was her gift. So I mean, they come back with gifts, I would say, but just not like the magical power gifts you think they come back like people think
Mhm.
they come back with.
I think, and when you said that she was disabled, I believe that when I say you come to learn something or something, there's some mission you have. I mean, Helen Keller, I think
Yes,
she decided to come down like that because you're going to teach, you know, a
you're gonna
different
change
way
the
to look
world.
at these people. Yeah, how to help them. So she said, I'm going to come in the world like that. And that's, because that's part of my mission. Yeah. It was, it, this time, if I was born to rich people with unlimited resources, I'd be a lazy son of it. So it's like, so it's just like, for my mission, I had to be. My first job was in a housing project I grew up in. That was my first job, so it's part of my mission, I guess. So,
Well, I hate to wrap it up wrong because I've been having a great time for an hour and 13 minutes at this point having a conversation with you, and
mhm.
I definitely want to have you back on some point because there's so much more we could talk about that I would love to hear your opinions on.
Yeah,
So I definitely am going to try to schedule another date with you to do a part two. But I do have to wrap it up because I got kids. I got to get to bed,
okay,
and my
I
wife, my
see.
wife is yeah, as you saw, my co-host here. But my wife is probably losing it out there trying to control
Right.
these kids.
Well,
But
just tell your listeners it's called Healers: Three Tales of Miracles, Angels, and Lost Souls. Is by Ron Mills. Or if you, and right now it's really on sale at that big, big place where everybody orders stuff from. It's like half price right now. And if you got a Kindle and you want to spend like a $1.99, Island Alien is a really good novella.
and they can find that on I believe
Amazon.
that's Amazon, yes.
Right. Both of them you can
And
find on Amazon.
can they find your paranormal show? Are there
No,
archives of it somewhere?
it's off. That was it. That was it was 5 year run. It was off and stuff. And
There's no archives of it that people can listen to it anywhere?
no, I don't know what they did with it on Talktainment Radio, but I remember my tagline was always doubt if you dare, but believe if you have the courage. So
I like that. I like that,
Uh,
and you should look into that though. You should look into being able to release the episodes out somewhere. I mean, there's a podcast idea there where you can release all the old episodes.
I asked them because it's like those people were hard to get, and it was just like, I had like interesting people, but it fed my curiosity. I'm still looking at stuff, and but
Oh,
it really fed my curiosity
trust me,
and need to know.
I have so many people that want to be guests on my show that I have a hard time getting them all on and like keeping track of them. Like
Mhm.
it gets so the paranormal field is so large and huge that it's
It
just
is. It is.
I've yet to have one repeat guest, but I definitely am gonna have it with you because I there's
I guess.
oh my god I could talk to you for hours about this
Mhm.
stuff and not get tired of it. So I mean,
Thanks. I
I
appreciate it.
not a problem. But all my listeners know where you can find me. I listen to the pre-recorded outro at the end of this episode, but
Hmm.
but please check out Ron's books on Amazon because I know I will be because I am really curious now about his books and I want to read them. Like more than like I say this about a lot of my guests, but like his books I really want to read. They sound so interesting. And I probably will be buying them on Kindle next time I have to go on a trip somewhere so I have something to read. But and oof, I mean both of them. Jeez. I love angels. I love stories by angels. I'm not religious, but I love stories by angels. I don't know why. I think it's because they're like a primal creature. They're like a before time creature, which is always interesting to read about, and they fascinate me to no end. Anything related to angels or demons, I love. Like those two subjects fascinate me to the end of the earth. But and aliens, of course, who doesn't love aliens? But thank you, Ron, for coming on. It's been an absolute
You're
pleasure to
welcome.
have you on. And to all my listeners and watchers, I will be back with another live episode. I want to say Wednesday, but I could be wrong. Yes, Wednesday, I'll be back with another live episode. So please come back and check us out, check me out. And thank you once again, Ron, for coming on.
Thank
And
you.
I will catch my listeners and watchers next time. Have a good night, everybody.